Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Spiritual Spotlight series. Today, I am joined by Sunshine. She is a psychic medium, soul healer, spiritual advisor, high priestess, Reiki master, recovering alcoholic, and founder of Sunshine Readings. Thank you so much for coming on the Spiritual Spotlight series. I'm so happy you're here.
Hi, Rachel. I'm glad to be here with you.
Sunshine, can you maybe share your journey from working in a corporate environment to founding Sunshine Readings? What was maybe a pivotal moment for you?
Hmm. A pivotal moment in that journey. It never would have happened if I did not hit a rock bottom in 2019 and admit that I was an alcoholic. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Can you maybe share more about your journey from the Catholic faith to exploring the esoteric and the occult and what drew you to those spiritual paths?
Hmm. Yeah. I love this story so much. It's very, very distinctive. I was around 11 years old and I was a Girl Scout growing up. And when you are a Girl Scout, you're going to be a part of a parish, at least in the past. You'd be part of a Catholic
Hmm.
parish. And so my schooling, raised as Catholic, went to Catholic school, was at one parish, and then I went to Girl Scouts at another parish. And at Girl Scouts, I was watching these girls act as altar servers. And I went up to my parish priest and I said, Father Kevin, I said, I really want to be an altar girl. Can I be an altar girl? And he said, no. And I said, what do you mean, no? He said, no. I said, but they over at St. Peter and Paul, they allow it. And
Right.
he says, my church, my rules.
Oh my gosh.
And I was just like, blink, 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 blink. What? Like, what do you mean? Your church? I thought this was God's house. Like, what are you talking about? And so it was really from that point forward, that I was determined to pretty much drive every single religion teacher I had absolutely bonkers. I would ask all of the hard questions, the whys that nobody ever had an answer to. I was asked at least by one, to just, keep it down and not disrupt the class. I mean, because it was, and I had a real hard time with the Catholic Church after that
Mm.
point. I just couldn't understand it. And it didn't feel like a truth. It didn't feel like something that was really honest and wholesome and something to believe. And so I started to seek other paths and found myself around the age of it took a couple of years, but around the
Mhm.
age of 16, stumbled into my very first metaphysics bookstore and was in awe. Yeah, was in awe.
I love that. At 16, do you remember what book maybe drew you in?
I don't know what book specifically would have brought me in. I think what brought me in more so is the name of the store was Alhambra. It was here, literally in the city that I live in right now, and it was in this basement of this building, and so it was kind of mysterious and weird and spooky, and so. Yeah, that was, I think, what drew me in was the fact that it was different and odd and,
Mm.
part of the occult. But I do know I still have two of my first books that I bought. One of them is Raymond Buckland's The Ultimate Guide to like Witchcraft is one of them. Got water damage at some point, but it is kicking around here somewhere. But the other book, interestingly enough, was just returned to me about a year ago and it literally has the manual credit card slip in it.
Oh
You
my
know,
goodness. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the, yeah, that thing. Um, the manual credit card, and it's dated 1997. So I would have been a senior in high school that year, and
Yeah.
it was the Wheel of Life. Yeah, the book about the chakras, the Wheel of Life. Yeah.
I love that. I remember watching Montel Williams and having Sylvia Brown. I was enamored by how she was as a
Damn,
reader.
how did I miss that? I don't even remember. I remember, I didn't watch a lot of TV.
Yeah. I
I didn't watch a
remember
lot.
I went to an all girls Catholic high school, and like you, struggled because I wasn't Catholic in a Catholic school, and you're treated differently.
Yep.
And then it's like, okay. And then my guardian would have tarot readers come in, and then we went to a spiritualist church. So it was very like, what's going on here? And I love that you were open to that as well. And it really like shaped the path that you're on now.
Oh, absolutely. I was blessed, even though my family was Catholic, both sides, my mother and my father's side of the family was Catholic. My mother's side of the family, my grandmother, was a psychic medium. And even though she was
Nice.
a devout Catholic, she would call it talking to the angels. Like, so she would tell, the joke was you could never lie to grandma. Nobody could ever get away with anything, right? Because that's the psychic ability. And then grandma talked to the angels, which was her mediumship. Yeah.
I love that. And I love that she was willing and open to do that. My new thing is that, I'm trying to, explore more of Christianity, and I call myself Holy Spirit activated.
Mm. I have a huge love of Christianity at this particular, I when I was in my early 20s, like my teenage years, my early 20s, I had a lot of spite towards the Catholic Church,
Mm,
and it clouded a lot of my understanding, acknowledgement, and acceptance of Christianity, right? Because
yeah,
the Catholic Church is not Christianity, right?
true.
um
So
and
true.
it is not Christianity. And so yeah, it did, but I've come to realize like the messages of Jesus are beautiful.
Mm,
They're unbelievable. Like some of the there's a reason it has been such a dominant religion for the
right.
last 2000 years, and that's because it so much of the message makes sense, but us humans love to bastardize
So
things and
true.
use it for our demise. I'm not even going to say for our benefit, but we love to use it for our demise.
So true. So you kind of brought this up before. So how did your journey to sobriety influence your decision to take your spiritual practices more seriously? And what eventually to establish sunshine readings?
Yeah. Um, so I hit my rock bottom in I hit two rock bottoms in 2019, but anybody that's got a story of recovery often will tell you that there's not one. Relapses do happen. And so I hit my rock bottom for the second time, and my partner at that time said that the only way that he would continue to remain in the relationship was if I went to AA.
Wow.
And so I agreed. I was horrified at what I'd done. I mean, just horrified at what I'd done. And we were on vacation. It was my 40th birthday, and came back. And the day we got back, I knew one person in my life at that time that was in AA in the program. And this person I hadn't talked to since I was a teenager.
Wow.
And I reached out and I said, just kind of knowing the program, I said, I need help. I said, can you take me to a meeting? And so I did 90 meetings in 90 days. And for any of your listeners that are familiar with a 12-step program, it's a spiritual program,
It
right?
is.
They don't talk about religion per se, but they talk about, a higher power. And so that's what it makes it a, spiritual program. So here's me, a little old witch, sitting at the tables with, all of these folks. And thankfully, the area that I live in has got a very eclectic religious background. So like people are very open. Some folks are Muslim, some are Catholic, some are Christian,
Mhm.
some will be Baptist. We had atheists. And so it wasn't until probably this had happened in October, I hit my rock bottom, and it was right around Christmas. And I remember sitting at the tables and I made a comment, and somebody pulled me aside and they're like, do you know that you said higher powers right there? Like when you were talking, like you said higher powers. Like, did you mean to say that? And I said, yeah, I did. And he said, my higher powers are all of my ancestors, that surround me and guide me and protect me,
Yeah.
And they were kind of, oh, okay. And so we fast forward a couple of weeks, and I'm like, maybe just after the new year, and I was feeling kind of, I'd been almost, approaching the 90 days,
Hmm.
needing to make a little bit of a decision of what I was going to do next. Was I going to continue? Was I not? And one of the things that I really was envious of in all reality, I was envious of people going to church.
Mm.
They would talk about this like spiritual practice, and they would talk about community, and they would talk about church. And I was just like, dang, man. I was like, why did these people got like a place to go to hang out and, like be, and so I just kind of missed it. And I didn't miss the Catholic Church.
Right.
I didn't miss the hypocrisy. But I did miss, and kind of took a pause, and I missed practicing my path. I missed my own spirituality. And so it was January 20th of 2020. I was just about 4 months into my, so that's it, November, December, January. It'd been 3 months, 3 months exactly, almost to the day into my sobriety. And I fired up a Facebook page, and I decided, called Sunshine Readings. And I decided that in order to participate in my weekly church service, so to speak, I would go live and offer a tarot reading.
Oh, I love that.
And so that's how it started. Once a week, I sat down, I spent an hour, and I'd pull cards for as long as I could for that hour. And that was my way of kind of like going to church every week.
Yeah.
And I never anticipated, though I've had astrologers tell me this since, that I never anticipated it turning into a business or anything of that nature. That wasn't why it was initially created. But the astrologists have told me that there's no way I could have not ended up with a business. Yeah. And so that's how that journey started.
I love that. So, what was it about the toxic corporate environment that pushed you to make such a significant career change? And how this experience shape your approach to business ownership?
Yeah. You know, I even before recovery and starting Sunshine Readings, I had left the company in 2017, and that was the really, really bad working environment. The gentleman that I worked for, the CEO of that company, was, narcissistic, incredibly abusive. I jokingly have told people at that time I was in therapy for two things: my CEO and my ex-husband, my ex-CEO and my ex-husband. And it was just, there was a lot of a Machiavellian approach to running business. He talked about his favorite leadership book was The 48 Laws of Power. I mean, yeah, it's just some really, really nasty things. And so I left. I walked out of that job I'd been there for 12 years.
Wow.
I had nothing, almost 12 years. I had nothing lined up. But I had returned after a 2.5 month leave of absence, taking care of my father. And it was so startling how horrible the environment was, because I'd been out of it for 2.5 months.
Right.
And my dad was like very sick. And so not only was I out of it, but I was also in this place of like, is this really how I want to be spending my time? Right. Like,
True.
and so I left without anything lined up. I did work another corporate job that I just exited just over a month ago now. But even when taking that job, I've told people, they kind of like, you what? I went in for an interview. I called them back and asked for another one. They like extended the offer, and I said, you know what? I really love that, but I think I'd really like to have another conversation. I've got some more questions before I can decide.
I love that.
And yeah, and so I asked them more questions. I was with that company for another almost 5 years. They were, they had their own garbage, which I think, I've come to realize every business is going to have its own garbage. And to answer your question, like, how do I treat differently? It's the same way that I treated, I've been a leader all of my corporate career. And it's the difference is I will run my business in the same way I've led my team. And that's with integrity, honesty, transparency, respect. right? Not a single one of us as individuals will ever run a company and have people work for us. Um, and unless we truly want to be the solopreneur, right? Like we
Right.
don't want anybody else to work with us. You are going to rely upon and require other people to help you,
Yeah.
right? And so to me, it's a matter of remembering that we will never grow as an organization. We'll never, become bigger, better, more advanced, help more people if you aren't taking care of your actual folks that are helping you do that in the first place.
So true. It sounds like you lean into servant leadership.
Oh, very much
Yeah.
so. Stronger in servant leadership. I've looked up the various different leadership styles a handful of times, and that is much more. Minus the fact that there's another leadership style. Like I prefer I prefer to be very hands off, but the challenge is not everybody operates well like that.
So true. Some people
Yeah.
like to be like micromanaged and,
Oh, they don't even
no,
they don't
not
even realize
micromanaged.
that they like to be micromanaged. But yes, you're spot on. They're like, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this? And you're
And
like,
you're like, I trust
oh,
you. I'll
you're
verify your work.
yeah, you're the guy that needs the steps. Okay, got it. Give me another 20 minutes and I'll write down the 20 steps that you have to take. Okay, yeah, got it.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. So Illuminate, the Unschool of Witchcraft sounds fascinating. Can you tell us more about the inspiration behind this program and maybe what a participant can expect with it?
Yeah. Um, so there's a couple of pieces that I think in this. The Illuminate, and the name kind of speaks to it. Illuminate itself is all about shining the light on things that, may not have been easily recognized and seen, right? That's why the name Illuminate. It's meant to bring things in, out of the dark and into the light. The unschool portion is my belief is that us as human beings, we don't really have one way that we learn well, right? And so the unschooling concept is taken from the homeschooling concept that it's really up to the individual students to
Mm,
tell the instructor or the teacher or me in that regards, what is it exactly that they want to be learning about and how is it that they learn well, right? And so the unschooling portion basically will shape and shift the programming based upon the students that are currently within it, active within it.
mm,
And I will show up in the way that they need me to show up. So if they need it written, if they need it recorded, if they need it videoed, if they need to be on camera, off camera, loud, whatever. Nobody's asked me to record it in ASMR, but I would totally record it in ASMR style if
Oh.
that's, I know. Hi there. We're going to talk about your psychic abilities today, right? If that's what they needed, right? If that was how they learned best,
I love
right?
that.
So yeah, and that's a really big, huge passion of mine because you know, I can't stand cookie cutter.
Mm,
I can't stand folks. I have a hard time learning through like video.
mm,
Don't send me through a 7 series video to learn something. It's just
yeah.
not my way of learning. So that's the unschool. And the witchcraft portion of it is it literally witchcraft. So my own philosophy around witchcraft is it's the combination of psychic abilities, magical power, and healing gifts all
Mm,
combined in order to be of service in this world. And so the individuals that are in this program, every single one of them are going to have an innate desire to be able to be of service.
I love that. I
Right. And
love that you respect your student to deliver what you are willing to teach in a way in which they're going to receive it.
oh, 100%.
That's amazing. So, can you maybe share the story behind how you received your universe given name, Sunshine?
Mm. Yeah, my universe given name. So this is probably, I don't know. I was probably like 28, 29, maybe in my early 30s. I don't know. And at that particular time, I had a friend that her and I had been friends for many, many years. I had now watched her third child be born. And so he was a little baby. Her middle child was a little girl. And I think she was like 3 at that time. And then her oldest would have been, I think, 5 or something around there. And so they lived a mile away and I was over there pretty often, but I hadn't been around for a while. Things got busy. And the little girl starts asking her mom, when is Auntie Sunshine coming over? And her mom's like, I don't know who this is.
Oh, wow. I love that.
And so like 2 weeks go by. I walk in the back door. All of a sudden, the little girl starts running up to me and says, "Auntie Sunshine, Auntie Sunshine." And my friend looks at me and she goes, "You're Auntie Sunshine?" I was like, "I
Guess
guess."
so.
And it's stuck ever since. So I always say the universe blessed me with the name Sunshine by a little 3-year-old, little 3-year-old girl. Yeah.
That's a beautiful story. I love that she connected you with sunshine.
Hmm.
I love that. What is some advice you would give to someone who is skeptical about spiritual guidance but curious to explore it? And how do you handle skepticism in your practice?
Hmm. I mean, curiosity, what I would say to anybody that's curious is just sit down with someone, sit down with a psychic, sit down with a spiritual advisor, just give it a try. Curiosity has killed a cat, it's not going to kill you. I mean, maybe if it's like you sticking something metal in a light socket, but don't do that. Right? Don't do that one. But no, curiosity should be what leads you to sitting down, right? Now, if you're going to be skeptical and you're going to sit down like a stone wall, right? Remember that stonewalling is a form of abuse. Don't do it,
Good
right?
point. Good point.
Stonewalling is a form of abuse, so don't do it. Just tell them, "Hey, I'm skeptical." Say why, explain why, and be willing to be open and just to listen. Have a conversation with them. Just that alone may change you from being just skeptical and being more curious and actually having the desire to receive some of that spiritual guidance. As far as how do I deal with things in my actual business when it comes to skeptics, um it's not very often folks will sit. Yeah, it's just the reality. Some people will joke about it in public if it comes up, and they'll jibe about it, and I may poke fun too, and just
Right.
depends. But for the most part, like if somebody's skeptical, I mean, I've shut a reading down, right?
Good for you.
If they're completely like stonewall, no, no, no. I had a woman, this was many moons ago, she sat with me for a mediumship session, and she's like, "Nope, nope, 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 everything that I said, nope, nope." And she finally goes, "You're not very good at this, are you?" And I was just
Done.
like, I was just
Done.
like, I was like, wow. Um, well, I sat for a moment and I asked my guides how to approach it, and they said
Wow.
like she was really hurt is what it was. And
Aw.
so, long story short, on that particular one, everything was hit. I had the conversation with the individual afterwards. It was her son that wanted to come forward. But needless to say, everything that I was saying about her son didn't resonate because what her son told me is she didn't actually know him. She was
Wow.
an abusive mother and never really knew him, never really got to know him, didn't approve of a lot of the ways. And so what he kept showing me was like he kept showing up as like a TV screen switching stations. And when I finally asked him, I said, what does this mean then?" He said,
Yeah.
he's like, "I was constantly on edge and never knew who I needed to be around her."
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it's just how I handle the skeptics is like when they sit down, I'm gonna talk with my guides. I'm gonna read the energy in order to understand how to best navigate that situation,
Hmm.
and try to guide them back. A lot of times, the reason why people are skeptical and still sit down is because they actually have a hurt that's buried really deep in them.
Yeah.
And so if I can get them just to open up and be comfortable, getting them to talk and admit can sometimes be all that's needed.
Oh, I love that. So you just talked about the ability to read energy. How did this ability shape your experiences, perhaps in the spiritual world and maybe even in the corporate world?
Um, Being able to read energy, uh,
It's a
it
beautiful gift to have.
it's a beautiful gift, but this is what I tell people when people ask, and I say I'm a psychic or I talk about my psychic abilities, it's often quick to respond with a like, "Oh, that's so cool."
Mm,
Right? But people don't realize that every single thing that we have comes with its shadow as well.
absolutely. Hmm.
Right? And so being able to read energies, though, in my spiritual life, it helps in my practice because I can sit and I can read and understand how to shift and change, whether it comes with a client or even what's within my business. Right? This past eclipse season, I got like about 4 weeks beforehand, I got this huge, energetic shift, like push to like shut everything down. to close everything and to go quiet. Well, thank God I did, because the amount of other things that ended up coming out after it were just pretty mind-blowing. Right. And so it helps me benefit helps me be able to navigate things in a corporate space. It can be incredibly beneficial, but this is where the detriment comes about,
Mm,
because you know what, if you're dealing with someone that's open and willing to receive feedback, it's okay. But I can't tell you how many times I've had to bite my tongue with an "I told you so," because I can feel an energetic shift into something, and
mm,
people don't want to listen and answer to it. I'll give you a really good example of it. Um, I was still working corporate last year. The role that I had in that job at that time was as like within organizational excellence. And so I helped establish like really good operations. I
mm,
was asked, and I'm also a great meeting facilitator. So I was asked to step in and facilitate our executive leadership team's yearly strategy session. Right. And cool. First session went good. Second session, okay. Third session, it started going off the rails, because I could hear everyone agreeing out loud to the CEO, but disagreeing in their thoughts, and like not caring and like apathy. So needless to say, when I left, I sat down with the CEO and had a conversation with him about it. So it's a blessing, but at the same time, it's like it really sucks to sit in a room with people and have people agree with you and then like in their mind not,
mm.
right? Or I once upon a time was in the lunchroom and I had on a rainbow dress, and I'm a weirdo and I don't have a problem with it. And this guy, VP walks in, he's like, "Oh, wow, rainbow dress." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, I wasn't, I wanted some, something bright and sunny out today. And, made some comment of like, I was hoping I didn't look too ridiculous. And in his head, he was like, "Oh, no." But in his head, it was like, "Yeah, you do." And it was just like, God dang it. Right. And so as an adult, now I recognize these things. Now, as I've been in this practice, I can start to understand this. But as a
Right.
child, I didn't understand this. In my 20s, I didn't understand this. In my 30s, I didn't even understand this. And I am now, I look back and I know and understand that my inability to understand and recognize these gifts was a huge factor in me drinking.
100%. How
Mhm.
absolutely. It's almost like you probably needed an outlet to, either shift these energies, shift the feelings, to decompress, to maybe not even be present.
Numb. Oh yeah, to
No,
numb.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
the corporate world can be very hard, and you are like myself, and I'm also in a leadership role, and it's like there's a lot of things like you have to do. My new practice is shielding up every single day before I go in. It's like, okay, shields up. Who's going to try to attack me today?
Yep. Yep.
Which is not fun. But anyway, before I ask you the last question, if anyone is interested in booking a one-on-one reading about your programs, anything like that, where is the best place for them to go to?
You can visit me on sunshinereadings.com. That's going to be the best place to find me.
I
Mhm.
love that. And then for those who are just beginning their spiritual journey, what advice would you give them to help them to start exploring their spiritual gifts and path?
The number one piece of advice that I love to give people is, we kind of touch it, just be curious, be
Mm.
open, right? If something interests you or sparks an interest, just explore it. I call them intuition trails. You never quite know where it's going to take you, but just follow it. Allow your curiosity to lead you down that path.
I'm going to ask you another question. With your intuition trails from where you started to where you are now, are you surprised at where it led you?
Um, Not a surprise as in a shock, but a surprise as in very delighted.
I love that. Oh, that's amazing. I love that. Oh, that's a beautiful note to end this on. Sunshine, thank you so much for coming on the Spiritual Spotlight series.
Thank you, Rachel.